This is Stacey McKibben with the Master Communicator podcast, where CEOs, senior leaders, and C-suite executives share their advice. It's 6 questions in 9 minutes because the best leaders know how to share their ideas concisely and quickly. Let's jump right in. Question number 1. In a few sentences, tell me who you are and what you do.
Yeah, hi Stacey. My name is Greg Allum. I am Vice President of Social Media Marketing and Display Advertising at LQ Digital. We're a digital agency in the US, and we focus on solving complex business problems in the digital space, particularly around enterprise companies looking for that next phase of growth. In particular, I head up the paid social and display team. So we're using Facebook, LinkedIn, and other media channels to really reach people at the right time for them to make a decision and become customers of our clients.
So you know the renegade dance then, right?
No, I know this.
The TikTok renegade, right? That's got to be.
I do. Actually, I'm not on TikTok myself. I need to get into it. It's been a channel I've avoided for a while.
Well, I have a tween in my household, so TikTok is all the rage around here. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts, as far as what's the best thing about leading people from your perspective?
Well, without saying cliche, I think that for me, there's kind of 2 areas that I really enjoy leading people. One is seeing someone come in either at their early stage of their career or even mid-stage and seeing them become the best version of themselves and feeling that you've had an impact on them, that your way of coaching or mentoring has helped them grow in some way. They leave becoming a better person. They sometimes even become better than you are, and that's such a rewarding thing to do, to give back. And secondly, because of that, I think there's a lot of opportunity for self-reflection on how you are as an individual, or how I am as a leader. The things that I've learned from other people is just as thrilling to me as seeing someone else develop and become the best version of themselves. So for me, it's that two-way street that you have between giving and receiving. And I think that is just fascinating because every day, every year, someone always surprises you and you just learn more about yourself and about the human race. So it's a fascinating experiment, I think, in life.
Yeah, it's funny. 2 words come to mind when you say that: reciprocity and what was the second word that just came to my mind, Greg? Congruence. Congruence, right? As you talked about learning and becoming your best version, right? So you're able to give and receive in that, and you're also able to become better yourself. So that was a really cool idea. I'm curious, will sometimes hear from other leaders, business would be great if it weren't for that pesky people part. Now, I'm curious, what are your thoughts about something like that?
Well, I've seen some of your podcasts, and this one always discombobulates me, puzzles me, that people would think life would be better or if we move these pesky people out of the way. I don't see that. Maybe it's the hippie in me, but I think life, isn't anything unless you can take someone along with you. Life's a journey, and I think you need to bring other people along with you. And having diversity of opinions and moments is what makes things special. So for me, the people are inherently why I'm here. Right? If I was just in an office on my own, working from home, which I am a lot at the moment, I don't think maybe I'd enjoy it as much. And this interaction, whilst it's great via Zoom, I think that nothing beats that kind of time you have face to face with individuals, because you get to understand who they are and what motivates them. And no matter what challenges they have within business world or within the day-to-day, I think you need to have that human interaction. I think we yearn for it.
Yeah. If you had a group of leaders in front of you right now, what piece of advice about communication would you give to them?
It's a good question. I think for me, a couple of words spring to mind. I think that this concept of when I came into business, and I was a photographer and an artist very early on in my life, and I came into business quite late for most people. I didn't go down the normal route. And I found this kind of authenticity lacking in some corporate worlds, where individuals would come in and they would suddenly become a different version of themselves that they wouldn't be outside of work. And I found that really jarring. So I think being able to find your own voice within that and knowing what that voice is and being proud of that voice, no matter where it comes from, whether it's a diverse voice, which is very prevalent at the moment in terms of how we amplify diverse points of view, and allowing those diverse voices to come into conversations, I think are the key things. So it's having the humility to understand there's other voices around and we need to listen to them, and having an authentic voice that you've developed and understand is your true voice are the best pieces of advice that I would give to a leader, my peers, or anyone I work with.
You're making me think of the first supposition of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is respect for other people's view of the world, right? And kind of that idea of, you know, if we can see things through other people's lenses, then I think the empathy, you know, can really help our communication and our approach.
And I agree. I think building on that, it's respect for your own voice. And it's like trying to find your own voice in this world is difficult, because there's so many preconceived ideas of what you need to, or what one needs to be when you come into work. You know,
I love that.
Trying to find or enable other people, leaders or colleagues, to find their own voice is something that I'm hugely passionate about, and it's somewhat challenging to extract that out of people sometimes.
Almost a big piece of why I did the podcast, to provide a platform and a voice for those who usually don't have a place to do that. So I appreciate that. I'm curious, what other successful business leaders like yourself should be on the show? You know, as we're looking out there for other, you know, leaders to pay attention to, who else should we be listening to?
Well, I have to say this because my CEO is probably listening to this. She's agreed to let me do this. So Katie Kime, who is our CEO at LQ Digital, she's an awesome leader, right? You know, I'm super proud to work for her. You know, super proud of like having a female CEO and female leadership team. So I think Katie's got a unique voice and perspective on life and her career. So she hasn't bribed me to say that, but she is watching, and I'm going to say it because I don't want to lose my job.
No. I could tell you actually meant it. And so then, as you think about, you know, who's really influenced you? Who's been, you know, your favorite boss or teacher, right? I mean, and that can be in any sense with which you define those words, but, you know, as you think about who's really influenced you, who comes to mind?
When I've seen other people answer this, and so the question, like the first person that sprang to mind was a French teacher when I was 11 years old. So I was quite a nervous, shy, awkward 11-year-old Greg Allum, right? And I went into secondary school in England. You know, and I had some challenges settling down into that environment and dealing with older children at the time. And there was this one teacher called Mr. Stevens, who was a French teacher, and the warmth and safety I felt with him and the whole classroom was amazing. He just had a way of teaching people that enabled us to learn in a really humorous way. He was funny, he was sweet. But he developed us into great students of French, right? Everyone, I think, in that class got A's or B's, you know, the top scores. And when he went there, and unfortunately, he left after the first year, and everyone's grades dropped like by 1 grade because he was so enthusiastic. And I always remember when I started presenting and teaching, he came to mind, and I tried to pull some of his humor and his warmth to the rest of the people that I teach and lead now.
That's amazing. It's so nice to be able to think back on those sorts of moments and opportunities in our life, right? And, you know, think maybe we were a Mr. Stevens to somebody else.
That would be probably the biggest. I think, you know, teaching must be a hugely stressful vocation, or, you know, a job to do, but there must be moments where you inspire people, and not for that moment, for the rest of their life. And I think that's just such a reward. That's
amazing. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the show, and I really appreciate all of your insights. I'm curious, if somebody wanted to reach out and introduce themselves, how might they go about that? Well, as a head of social media, I am very active on social, as you can imagine. So LinkedIn, if you go to linkedin.com /Greg Allum, you can find me there. I'm on Twitter as well, Greg Allum. So look me up. I'd love to have a conversation with anyone. That sounds great. And I'll be sure to put it in the description if anybody just wants to click on that to find you. So, well, again, thank you so much for being on the show. And this is Stacey McKibben with the Master Communicator podcast. For more ideas and insights, please do go check us out at www.concilioteam.com. And we look forward to seeing you again next time. Take care.